Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Rangers Review morning briefing for Friday, the 28th of July. I'm Derek Clark, and I'm joined by a full squad this morning on Rangers Review Live Day. I'm joined firstly by Joshua Barry. How are we doing, Joshua?
Yeah, good, Derek. Looking forward to tonight. Double billing for the three of us, so hopefully lots to get into.
Yeah, and Johnny McFarlane also joins us this morning. How are we doing, Johnny?
Yeah, great, mate. Looking forward to today. Seize the day and all that. Carpe diem. Let's do it.
All that jazz, absolutely. I love this comment that's just popped in here. Can't wait to see the lovely wee carrot top that gives me my morning serotonin and Rangers news. That's very kind words from you, buddy. That's greatly appreciated. And a special shout out as well when I got the train up yesterday. I got off at Motherwell to get a train to Hamilton, and the train driver recognised me. Big fan of the show, so shout out to Andy, the train driver. It was great to speak to you, buddy. Unfortunately, he can't make the show tonight, but he's a big fan of the work that we carry out, lads. So that was good to hear.
Johnny, Derek can't go anywhere these days, can he? Every second day it's one of these. Yeah, every second.
He had the hair like that the other day. You know, it was like a spiky. It was fantastic.
Yeah. So yeah, live show tonight, folks. Cannot wait for it. Doors open at 6:30 p.m. Cannot wait to see a lot of you there in person. Myself, Jonny, Joshua, Stevie, and Barry Ferguson will be there as well. It'll be an hour of chat from around 7 p.m. onwards. We'll have a little refreshment break before coming back on stage with Barry to talk about his time at Rangers and his thoughts for the season ahead. We've got loads of brilliant prizes to give away as well, don't we, Johnny?
Oh, we've got some absolute crackers. Signed boots, signed shirts by the full team, by certain players, by former players. We've got some copies of Martin Ramsey's incredible book, Revolution, to give away. Joshua will back me up in saying that's one of the best Rangers books of the last couple of decades, and much more. So that's all going to take place as part of the raffle, and we'll do that at the end of the night. So some seriously good prizes to give away. And a fantastic night, definitely to be had by all.
Yeah, absolutely. Cannot wait. Just to give people a sort of idea what to expect, Joshua, we'll have a sort of preview for the season ahead. What we're looking ahead, giving our thoughts and opinions about how Rangers are going to fare and what we hope will be a successful season this season.
Yeah, well, obviously, because we do this so often, we're kind of speaking day to day, and it'll be good tonight, I think, to just look more generally at the summer, at the season, and go through some of the big talking points, whether that be picking out particular players. We're going to look at our preferred 11, look at the work that still needs to be done, make a few predictions. So yeah, more of the same as what you get on here. Hopefully a bit more refined because it's on a stage. We'll all be trying to get our words in and effectively giving a whole season preview, Derek, and having a laugh while we do it. So yeah, it'll be good to meet people because we do this every day on a screen, and it feels very far away. So to actually get to do this in person, I think it's going to be great fun. There is still some tickets in the door, as you can see for the ticker below at Edmondson House. So if anyone is not, you can still buy the tickets online, I think, but as well you can get them on the door as well. So yeah, looking forward to seeing a lot of you tonight.
Yeah, a few comments coming in, Johnny. I don't think this is the case, but just to clarify, Heller and a few others, the show will be live streamed on the members section here, so those of us who can't go can watch. Don't believe that is the case.
No, unfortunately, it's not. One time only for this one. It's quite difficult to get in a video team and all the rest of it to record that. It's quite a technical feat, and we already get enough complaints about little bits of sound and things like that. So to do it properly, you need to really get a good few people in to do an event like that. It's a big space. So yeah, not on this time, Heather, unfortunately. Sorry.
Yeah, and just a quick shout out as well. Ian Thompson, of course, a big fan of the show, his friend and also fan Tim Sharp, unfortunately won't be able to make it as he's had an impromptu small operation to undergo at hospital today. So shout out to Tim from your buddy Ian, and we wish you all a very speedy recovery. Looking forward to seeing you later on, Ian, and many others heading along. Remember, you can buy tickets on the door. You are advised to buy them beforehand on the Edmondson House website just to avoid disappointment But yeah, looking forward to seeing so many of you later on this evening. Right, guys, of course, as much as we've got a live show this evening, we can look ahead to another pre-season friendly tomorrow. Rangers round up their campaign before the season begins for real, heading over to Germany to take on Hoffenheim. Ewan is over there for us, so I know you did a video with him yesterday, Joshua. He's hot-footing it over to the stadium today at some point.
Yeah.
In terms of the game itself, a lot of disappointment after Wednesday night showing against Olympiacos. We know the players have been getting pushed hard in training. It was a bit of a lackluster showing on Wednesday. Are you expecting an improved performance tomorrow?
Yeah, we kind of covered this yesterday. There's a piece on the website that goes into all the thoughts about it a little bit more. I think getting too het up about a friendly probably is over the top, but you can understand that when a lot of new signings have been made, when there's so much, every season means a lot, but some seasons just seem to hold a little bit more significance or anticipation, and that's understandable. And what I've kind of riffed off, I guess, in this piece is if you look at Michael Beale's interview a week on, I think it's his second week in pre-season after the trip to Germany, he speaks about starting the week doing a lot of off-ball stuff and ending it doing the on-ball stuff, and he says the players will be happy about that because the off-ball stuff is the ugly side of the game, if you like. And, you know, I think that's the same for people watching it. Sometimes it's not the most fun, and all these games I think have kind of been organised to prepare Rangers not so much for the domestic fixtures, but more for the Champions League qualifiers, to prepare them for, I guess, the time they'll have to spend off the ball, and you know, taking the defensive errors to the side, because I think everyone could agree that is concerning, and repetitive mistakes are concerning, depending on who lines up in these big games. But I think if you look more widely about what they did in the first half and the second half, you can see a pattern. So the piece on the website kind of goes into that a little bit more. With that being said, Beale said after the game that I think the phrase was it won't be not handing out minutes but sharing of minutes or something like that at the game at the weekend. You'd imagine that it will be as close to the team that starts against Kilmarnock as we'll get. You'd imagine that there won't be 20 players playing, and he said as well it'll look more like a normal game. So I think if Rangers went on and put another show and it was a bit underwhelming, you'd have reason to maybe expect a little bit more before the start of the season. But my guess would be they'd name a stronger team. They'd maybe treat this more like a normal game as opposed to, as you mentioned, the training schedule leading into the previous games, which he's made a point of speaking about before every single one. And it'll be interesting to see who plays in that starting 11, who lines up in the defence, who's the third midfielder, what's the front three, because with these arrivals imminent that everyone's expecting ahead of next week, you probably wouldn't throw them in right away at Rugby Park away. So yeah, I'd guess that the team that starts at Hoffenheim, give or take, will be the team that starts at Kilmarnock. Yeah, a load of comments coming in. Firstly, Stuart Balmer, thank you, buddy. He says, I'm a member, but I dug into my pocket and bought 2 tickets. Looking forward to the live show. Good man, Stuart. Looking forward to seeing you a little later on. A lot of concerns with regards to the defence, John. I know when we were on with Adam during the week, myself and you sort of kind of content with the defence as it is. That was prior to the Olympiacos game, but there's a lot of concern with regards to the back line and whether Rangers need to reinforce it somewhat. Caroline says our defence is shaky at best. You concerned after what you witnessed on Wednesday, and has that changed your mind somewhat that Rangers need to go and find reinforcements?
A little bit. I've got to be honest. It wasn't good at all defensively, was it? It was a bit of a beep show, and especially down that left flank. Now, I've been really, really defensive around Ben Davies, who I do think is a good player and will bring a lot in certain games. But I'm starting to have my concerns because every time he seems to be pitched in against an opposition that's of a slightly higher standard than the baseline SPFL, he seems to struggle. And you just can't continue to get away with that if you're a Rangers centre-half. Now, there was moments in the game where I turned to Joshua and said, wow, brilliant bit of play by Ben Davies there. At one point, he took the ball in the second half, moved it up into the final thirds, was crowded out, turned round and was able to thread a lovely through pass into space that broke the press. Not many defenders can do that, and yet it doesn't really matter at Rangers if you're going to fall asleep for the first goal or the second goal. So I think that Rangers would be well advised once they complete these 2 deals for Cifuentes and Danilo, once they get a couple of players out, to start really focusing on what they're going to do about that left side. Is Borna going to stay? Is Yilmaz the answer? It was interesting that Beale had a bit of a pop at Yilmaz after the game.
What do you make of that?
Across the bow. I'm very unsure as to who will start as first choice against Kilmarnock there at the moment. We definitely need to be having a look, I think, at the options there. Now, let's put it into context, though, and Josh has done well in talking about why the game panned out the way it did, why the friendlies have panned out the way, because fundamentally Michael Beale's doing a fair bit of experimentation. I think Connor Goldson being missing is always going to lead to a relatively shaky Rangers defence, because he's absolutely at the heart of everything as a defensive leader. So you can't really replace him like for like. I'm dead comfortable with Connor Goldson and James Tavernier, so the right side's fine. Borna Barisic, you know what you're going to get. He's extremely frustrating, but if we're talking about SPFL, he's fine. I'm sure Yilmaz will be fine for most SPFL games. Slightly concerned about things like Pataudry away, Tynecastle, when they start shelling him at the back post. How's that going to pan out? But he's not been caught out like that yet, so give him credit and let's see how that goes. Left centre back, you've got Balogun in there, who we know is very good at SPFL level. I think Suter's fine as a left centre back at SPFL level, even if it's not perfect, because he isn't left-footed. Davies can play against teams where you need to move the ball quickly. There's actually quite a lot there. But if you're going to talk about the Champions League, if you're going to talk about Celtic, I think it could be exposed, a decision to leave that as it is. There's a lot of smart manoeuvring is going to have to take place to improve that defence while shifting people out. I think, 6 already in there, 2 talented youngsters, 4 very, very well-established centre-backs already in there. So I just think if you're going to bring someone in, it has to be a hybrid player that's a left-back and a centre-back, like a Calvin Bassey, or Borna Barisic, should he leave, or Yilmaz leaving. But I can't imagine that Rangers will want to do that at this stage. He's only 21, 22, and he needs a bit of time to really, really bed in. That said, Derek, if he doesn't start the season as number 1 Yilmaz, we're going to have to make our own conclusions at that point.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. Joshua, Michael Beale says, I think after the Hamburg game, he's slightly overloaded in terms of the centre-backs in the defensive area. But are you slightly concerned by that? I guess the manager will know more than anyone else where he'll need to improve his team. A lot of money has been spent, of course, in the forward areas. Does money need to be spent in the back line, do you reckon?
I kind of think that too much is being read into the Ridvan thing, because I do think he'll start against Kilmarnock. If you look at the full-backs that Beale has fit at the moment, with Adam Devine just coming back into training, it made sense to I guess, get Barisic up to speed as well. I'd be very surprised if Ridvan does, and maybe he won't, but if he doesn't start tomorrow, I'd be very surprised. I think from what we've seen of him so far, and you can say that, yes, they run unpressurised games towards the end of last season, even in the friendly against Hamburg, I think he gives you so many more options on the ball. Again, I feel we've covered it a lot, but you can sit on the last line, you can play deep and build up, you can move inside the pitch, you can carry the ball, he looks forward with pace, and I just think plainly Rangers need refreshment in that area, like they have across the pitch. If Rangers hadn't, it's not only Barisic, but someone like Kamara, who's been on his day, think how good he was for Rangers, but there just comes a time when you've got to refresh certain positions, and there's a reason that clubs don't have the same squad of players for 7-8 years, and they do refresh it. On the topic of, is he going to get targeted because of his height, I think in certain aspects there is that is a legitimate point, as well as that. I think if you look at what Beale did away from home last season, instead of kind of not shutting up shop away from home, but I think if you look at what Gerrard did with his midfield quite often away from home, it would be a quite combative midfield, and he'd maybe push a Rebo up a line and he'd take away an attacker from the starting 11. Whereas if you look at what Beale did, he always included whether it be Tillman or Cantwell in there, and I think always focused on treating it as a game of football first. It's still football on a pitch. Rugby park isn't a fantastic pitch, and at times you are going to come up against, I guess, a unique physical opponent in Scottish football compared to the challenges that you'd face if you're playing in a different league. But I think if Rangers are going to win the league, there's going to be an element of functionality in their team, yes, but it's going to be about playing the best footballers, the players who are going to give you the most options on the ball. And I think from what we've seen from Ridvan so far, he's not done much that I can think of that throws up great concerns. Yes, he's not huge, but that's not stopped certain players before. I think he gives you more options on the ball, as mentioned. They spent a lot of money in that area. So I'd think and I'd hope that it was just a case of, that rotation that Beale referenced across the squad, and now come into the game at the weekend, we're going to see that a clearer idea of what he's doing with that starting 11. And personally, I definitely think there's going to be Ridvan in there. And I think it should be. I think for a multitude of reasons, Rangers need to refresh that area. And they've got a player there that they spent a lot of money on that's promising, that's done well and stood up when he's come into the starting 11, and obviously had a really difficult first season moving to Scotland. Probably a very different experience for him. He tears his hamstring just after he gets into the starting 11 as well.
Manager change.
Yeah, managerial change, exactly. So the centre of defence is another conversation. I still think Rangers maybe need one more in there. I agree with Jonny that I think Davies does give you a lot on the ball, and you can overlook that, but at home that's going to be really important to have a player from the left side of defence who can really pick apart defences with his passing. In mitigation, I think he definitely plays his best football next to a dominant centre-back, and there's an argument that definitely in Champions League football especially, you need someone there that maybe is more of a dominant centre-back next to Conor Golson. And if you look at the profile of centre-backs that Beale's had in the past alongside Gerrard at the club, they've always kind of had that profile, haven't they? They've always been pretty big, physically imposing players. So it remains to be seen what happens after those two arrivals, but I'd still like to think the Rangers will bring in one player in that position. And Stevie in his column this morning, that's kind of what he was echoing as well. In his words, I think it'd be a 9 out of 10 to a 10 out of 10 summer signing-wise if you put a left-sided centre-back on the top of Danilo and Cifuentes, but I guess we need to see what's going to happen.
Yeah, and of course, lots of comments coming in about Dujon Sterling. We've not seen him yet either, so he could be a potential answer over there at fullback over there on the left. Let's get to a few of the comments that are coming in. Alexander Cameron says, we need a Helander type left-sided centre-half who loves defending. Oh, if only he was fit. By all accounts, I've seen there was teams in Serie A keen on bringing him back to Italy, which should be a fantastic move for him. But yeah, it was unfortunate the way it ended with Phil Helander. He's had injury problems for some time now, and unfortunately he was plagued with them whilst he was at Ireland. Alan Hall says, I'd rather Balogun starts ahead of Davis at left centre-back, or even Suter and Balogun at the other side. Do you want to jump in there, Jonny?
Yeah, I think it is really, really difficult for Rangers to find a left centre-back that combines the qualities of Philip Helander and Ben Davies. The truth is, if you go out and get someone like that, it's likely they're going to cost 30 or 40 million pounds because every member of the Premier League is going to be after them. Everyone wants ball-playing centre-backs now. And you also need a centre-back to defend. That's what they do. That's their job. So it's a really, really difficult mix. And I think maybe Rangers' best bet is to try and have two players that embody those two elements of the game, because we know fundamentally against a lot of teams in the league who are sitting in camping in a low block, you don't need a brilliant defender. You could almost play a midfielder in there, in the way that Pep Guardiola, remember, used to move back Javier Mascherano back in the day for Barcelona to centre back, because he knew that he wasn't really going to be fundamentally that tested as a centre back. And what he would bring was his ability to move the ball super quick and super fast and super accurately. And that was obviously something that superseded the lack of defensive nous. I just think it's a really difficult recruitment ask to say, go out and get me someone who's a really, really good ball-playing centre-back who can move the ball super quick. but can also defend. And I don't know how realistic it is. You're probably more likely to get someone like that if they're young, if they're 19 or 20, picking them up from a smaller league. But then you've got the questions about, will they settle in Scotland? Will they settle in to the Scottish game? It's not something I don't think you can easily fix. I don't know what Joshua feels on that from a recruitment point of view.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's obviously easier said than done to get a player that can do everything. Beale at points last season, he used we've had a couple of pieces on the website about this before, but moved to a back three to effectively allow your two centre backs to really go high and wide. If you think back to the game, I think it was Rangers 2, Dundee United 0. Tillman's first goal comes from Goldson playing wide, an unopposed pass, plays vertically into the feet of, I think it's Cantwell. And if you look at the position of Goldson and Davies in that scenario, it's actually Lundstrom's dropped back to just man mark the Dundee United forward, who I think was Stephen Fletcher. So Rangers domestically are going to have to work out lots of solutions as ever to break teams down. There's going to be new problems, and I guess that doesn't get easier. Teams spend a lot of money trying to recruit players who can break down defences all across the world. But Leon King was initially supposed to be out for a while, wasn't he? And Liam Balogun was probably signed in response to that. I think definitely signed in response to that. Now Leon King's back in training on Monday, so you definitely do have a lot of numbers in that area. If, for example, you had King and Ufeko go out on loan, maybe that creates space, but do you need King for that? The UEFA homegrown quota. I guess players like Adam Devine come into that as well. I think Dujon Sterling is going to be more than capable. I think he'll be pretty comfortable at left back as well, not only because he can come inside onto his right foot, but he's relatively two-footed. So there is a lot of options at the moment, but I guess that the point is, do Rangers have a set-in-stone first-choice centre-back partnership that is going to be unanimously accepted? Not that always matters, because the manager's going to do what he thinks is best. John Souttar, if he's fit and available, plays. I think at the moment I don't think there's much question about that. But again, despite the fact that he's come back from injury and looks to have kind of got over his injury issues, you have to plan accordingly for his injury issues throughout his career, isn't it? Because if not, I don't think that'll be wise. So yeah, something tells me that there might still be a bit of activity in that area, and I think that might be required before the start of the season.
Yes. Let's get to Harry. Says just on Dujon, he said, do you think Dujon will fill in at left back when playing against more physical teams? Possibly. He is a big unit of a player. We've yet to see him right enough, so it's hard to base an assessment on that, but you can play both right and left back, and I'm looking forward to seeing him in a Rangers jersey. The world's greatest DJ says, I read somewhere that we're still in the hunt for Arsenal's trustee. He's a player that has been linked heavily with Rangers. There are a number of clubs that are keen on him by all accounts. I've seen that Ipswich were credited with an interest in him, as well as teams in Holland apparently sniffing about him. He spent last season on loan at Birmingham City, but he's one. Jonathan Panzo, of course, is one Rangers have been heavily linked with in the summer as well, and there is still a long time to go in terms of the transfer window. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a bit of movement with regards to that and improving that back line with some huge games around the corner. Of course, we've got the Genk and Servette Champions League qualifier in a couple of weeks' time, which will be interesting to see what happens with regards to that one. A piece, of course, in the first leg of that one, so finally poised. One player who could be heading out, Johnny, reports, of course, Alex Lowry. We've discussed it. About the benefits of a loan this season for not only Lowry but some other younger lads in the squad. Northampton Town, I believe, to be keen on acquiring his services. They've just been promoted from League 2 in England into League 1. I think this should be a decent move for Alex. I think from the outset, I think he might struggle to force his way into the first team this season with the players at Michael Beale's disposal. I would like to see him getting game time, consecutive regular game time elsewhere, preferably down south or abroad. I think League 1 in England would be an ideal platform for him.
Well, I'm not so sure about that, Derek. I've got to be honest. Listen, it could be good for him, and I'm delighted to hear that he is thinking about going on loan, because he absolutely needs minutes. But I'm not sure the hurly-burly of that league is great for such a silky player whose main quality is about creating from final third areas. I mean, now, Am I speaking from a position of ignorance? Probably. But last time I checked, League One was a bit rough and tumble. Has that changed?
Well, I was going to give you two players who played for Bolton last season, who went back to their respective clubs. James Trafford has just joined Burnley for a serious amount of cash. The goalkeeper, Connor Bradley, who was absolutely sensational last season, and he's went back to Liverpool. Big things expected there. I think he's just about to sign, or he might have just signed a new deal there, and they've got high expectations for him. So clubs are, Man United sent a boy to Bolton last season as well to sort of learn his trade. So big clubs down south are sending players to League One to develop. So I don't buy into the fact that Rangers shouldn't be sending players there also to develop. So if it's good enough for Man City, Liverpool, and Man United, I think it's good enough for Rangers.
Yeah, but it's specific, isn't it? So listen, I'm not saying you don't send players to League One, but every player now has a bespoke plan for their career. And the youth setup will look at, well, how do you get the best out of this lad? Some guys, it's the old cliche, need an arm round them. Some need a kick up the backside. So some guys get sent to Cowdenbeath on loan because it will give them a boot in the proverbials and hopefully make them think, crikey, I need to work a bit harder because I'm going to end up at this level. Some guys need to go to an SPFL club because the standard they're at, they don't need that. They just need to be able to be in and around a different environment and hopefully get some game time. For me, Alex Lowry is the kind of player that needs to be in a ball-dominant team. Maybe there's a thought process that he needs to go down there and
grow up a little bit,
see what football's like outside of Rangers, where it's a little bit less glamorous. I don't know. Perhaps that's part of it. Perhaps I've explained their thought process without realising it. But perhaps I feel with Alex Lowry, he's got the level of talent that I'd expect him to be getting a better move than Northampton Town.
To be fair, I think their remit this season will be to avoid relegation. They are a newly promoted side into League One. I'm not too sure who they've brought in already, what their ambitions are, but I agree with you in terms of there are better teams in League One that you could go to. What about you, Joshua? Would you like to see him move down here and play on loan for a season, or can you get a better club? No disrespect to Northampton, but a better suited club?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's always hard to compare leagues, isn't it? But I guess if you're going to one of the bottom teams in the Scottish Premiership, I don't think the football is going to be much better than League One, because you do, as you mentioned, have a fair few big teams in there, and I can't say I watch lots of it. You watch more of it than me, Derek, but I think for Lowry, you look at the fact that he's been in the B team for the last 2 games, then he captained the B team, I think, against Everton. You'd imagine that if he was going to be part of things this season and play a big part, he'd be part of pre-season, reading between the lines. I would like to see him, I agree with Johnny, go out to a team that is going to allow him to do what he does best, which is play with the ball and have a lot of the ball. I don't think there's much value in him playing in a team that are going to transition forward by hitting the strikers, hitting the channels. With that said, maybe sometimes a difficult loan move is right, or somewhere where it really tests you. But yeah, I'd be in favour of him going somewhere. I don't know of what kind of style Northampton play, and I can't say I've watched much of them, but I think it's important that as well as going and playing football, he plays the right type of football. So wherever he does go, I think that needs to be the remit for him.
Yeah, world's greatest DJ says, get Lowry down to the den. Millwall will make a man of him. Totally agree. Get him down there. Millwall are a good side, actually, incidentally. I know
they play good football. I think that would be a better move, to be honest.
They do. Yeah. They do, actually. They'll be looking to hit the playoffs again, and they were just unlucky not to do. I think they reached the playoffs, if I'm not mistaken, or just missed out last term. So they'll be keen to be there or thereabouts this season as well. Lowry's the other news that I wanted to touch on, Johnny. Our very own Chris Jack reported yesterday that Rangers will demand that Celtic honour their league obligation to provide tickets for the second Old Firm fixture of the campaign, even if the Parkhead board turned down briefs for the Ibrox clash in September. Celtic believed it's set to reject the chance to take around 700 seats for the first Derby showdown. It's on September the 3rd, of course, following talks with fan groups in recent days. What do you make of that? Is that something that surprises you, that it looks like they're not going to take tickets for that first Old Firm game of the season? And do you expect Rangers fans to get tickets for the tournament? Is that around about New Year time?
Well, I mean, Rangers have offered the tickets to Celtic. I think they're still talking, the two security teams of the clubs, to try and find a resolution. But from Rangers' point of view, they see it as very much that they've done their bit. They've made the tickets available. They want away fans at the ground, and they'll do everything that they can to make sure everyone's safe and sound. But the message is very much the allocation is not changing. You know, it's very clear, and Celtic, I think, have made it clear through people close to them that they want a return to the old firm allocations. Of course they do. Of course they do, because they got a better deal. I mean, this is the thing that's often missed, you know, and I've said it on this before, and I'll say it again. Look, when David Murray did the deal, Celtic were not a threat to Rangers at the time, or he didn't think they were a threat, you know, and it resulted in Celtic getting the whole Broom loan stand, which is hugely influential in terms of the overall atmosphere at Ibrox. And Rangers were put in the sort of top corner at Parkhead. Now, it was great for Celtic because it's a much better ability to kind of get the support on board in the way that was set up. So that was the deal that was agreed back then, and it was better for Celtic, and it's been better for Celtic. And since then, there's obviously been arguments about that. There's been stuff that's going on, and now we're facing a situation whereby you've only got 700, which I think is not really ideal. Personally, I think a sort of European-style allocation of maybe 2,500, if that could be agreed, would be ideal. That would be perfect, and what should happen. But the days of the full stand going to Celtic fans, it just won't happen again. It won't happen. It wouldn't be popular amongst the support. All those guys have paid their hard-earned cash for season tickets, and I think we're seeing this across the board in Scotland. You see Hearts now saying, we're not doing it anymore because we want to give the stadium to our fans. We don't want to give an advantage to an opposition. It's exactly the same thing. So, listen, Celtic might not take them, but then I think Rangers' position on that is, well, we've offered them, so we'll expect to be offered them for Parkhead, and we'll take them. Yeah. So it's going to be interesting to see how it pans out, because at that point, you're starting to get into an SPFL rules situation, and then the pressure would be on Neil Doncaster to force that through. But everyone needs to be safe. That's obvious. Rangers want that. Celtic want that. There have been incidents at both Ibrox and Parkhead that have been pretty much lamentable, and that you would want to avoid in terms of away fans having things hurled at them. And there obviously needs to be a scenario undertaken where you look at the safety of that, and you ensure that doesn't happen again. And I understand that's ongoing, and that there's confidence that can be resolved, certainly at Rangers' end. So it's a very, very interesting one. Fundamentally, Derek, it's a power struggle between these two clubs over this issue. But I am not in favour, unlike many people in the media industry, I'm not in favour of a return to the old allocations. I don't think that's right for fans of the individual clubs, but I would say a halfway house of about 2,500, what's traditionally called a sort of European allocation, to me would be the best answer to this question.
Yeah, interesting. Certainly one to keep an eye on. Right, we'll wrap up. Just, I wanted to, there's a couple of points I just wanted to get to. Ian Thompson, just on tonight. I meant to ask, is it a case of scanning the QR codes at the door, or do we need to print off tickets? I think is it QR codes, Johnny? Am I right in thinking that?
I mean,
you'd imagine so.
You'd imagine so in this. I think you'll be. I don't think you'll need to print your ticket. I think if you come with a QR code, that'll be fine. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure.
Ian, if they say you do need to print your ticket, just says Johnny says I didn't have to. And then
it should, I mean, it
Johnny's issue before the show.
It should be obvious, but
yeah, don't worry at all, Ian. Yeah, we'll get you sorted. If I can't imagine there'll be any issues, but we'll sort you out anyway. Okay, cannot wait for tonight, folks. Remember, doors open at 6:30 p.m. For a 7 o'clock start. Myself, Jonny, Joshua, Stevie, and Barry Ferguson at New Edmondson House this evening for Rangers Review Live, our debut live show. Cannot wait for that one. Thanks to everyone for interacting with the programme this morning. It's greatly appreciated. Remember, Ewan is over in Hoffenheim, so we'll hopefully bring you as much content as possible over the weekend. The predicted lineups will be coming out over the weekend just before the game as well at some point later as well, so keep your eyes peeled for that. We'll be back again on Monday to review the game on Saturday and of course the live event. Alan Hall there, thank you very much, Alan, for stepping in. QR codes are fine. He's been to a few gigs at Edmondson House already. Thank you very much, Alan, for that. Right, folks, we'll be back again on Monday. Unless we see you on Friday, have a great weekend. Bye for now.